because I try to bring it from, here's the entrepreneurship thing that I'm learning and understanding and going through the process with, and then here's the me learning what my story is and like really understanding what these experiences are and how I'm developing and quote building my brand voice, right?
Today I talked to Trekk on the Speaking of Crypto podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Grinnell.
Want to learn more and be inspired by crypto's frontrunners who are out on the leading edge of this technology? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Speaking of Crypto with your host, Shannon Grinnell.
Today I talked to Trekk with 2 Ks, who's podcast host, content creator, and consultant in the crypto and blockchain space. And we talk about establishing a personal brand. We get into Bitcoin's peer-to-peer beginnings to what it is today. And we chat about some of the who's who in Bitcoin and crypto space in 2019. This is episode number 93 for the Speaking of Crypto podcast. But before we get started, a big shout out and a huge thank you to our show sponsors. Today's show is brought to you by Ledden. Ledden is Canada's leading Bitcoin financial services company, offering a suite of services to help you save in Bitcoin. Ledden's Bitcoin-backed loans let you access dollars without selling your Bitcoin. Ledden's Bitcoin savings account also lets you earn 3.5% annual interest, compounded and paid monthly in Bitcoin. Learn more at ledden.io. This episode is also brought to you by Stark. Stark's payment system allows your online business to accept Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies without restructuring your existing technology. Join the new era of the internet. Find out more at starkpayments.com. Want to earn free Bitcoin? You can with Lolly. Lolly makes it safe, simple, and fun for everyone to own Bitcoin. Earn up to 30% back in Bitcoin rewards when you shop online at one of Lolly's over 500 top retail brands. Join for free at lolly.com. So thanks for sitting down with me. Really appreciate you taking this time. Mm-hmm. We met in Toronto at the opening of the Blockchain Futurist Conference. And yes. In that time, we just talked for a little bit, but I remember you telling me that you were really starting to take things seriously and that you had a plan and some structure to the content that you were going to put out. So do you want to tell us about that and where those ideas came from?
Okay. So do I got to introduce myself or like is that going to be done afterwards? Like, oh, this is Trekk, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So I do an intro after the fact, but feel free. Go for it.
So yes, my name is Trekk with 2 Ks, and I do this thing in space of, I want to say sharing stories, and I'm labeling it that way now because I've been on this thing about trying to figure out how to communicate better with people and how I'm relaying or conveying like what my brand is, what my brand voice is, but figuring out what my story is and how I'm connected with people. And when I get them on the podcast, getting them to a point where they're comfortable with, sharing their experience. And within that, then put it out into the public and someone else listens to it and it's like, wow, like, oh, there's somebody else who's in my situation or in something similar to, and I look to talk to people who are in various aspects of this thing we call the crypto blockchain industry / space, meaning you could be a dog walker, you could be a mechanic, you could be a doctor, you could be a soccer mom, and you do something, whether you're hodling, whether you're investing, whether you're trading, swing trading or whatever, as a part-time thing, right? As all right, this is what I'm doing while I go to school or between when I have to get the kids from school.
For
right?
sure. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are in that boat, for sure.
Right. And then you go to the other extreme of what I call the people who actually live in the space, where they are founders of companies, where they are, the lead dev on a company, somebody who just does mining, somebody who left the traditional workforce to then just do this blockchain crypto thing. And you have the influencers are examples of that, right? So you look at like Shill Nye, aka Michael, Crypto Finally, Bitcoin Ben, although Ben, like dual hats it on the end of, he still does his traditional job of being a CDL driver, and he does, get out into the space as far as promoting stuff and going to events, and he's working on his own thing that he's building. But my point to this is that in talking with these different types of people, to, for me at least, aid in what would be considered, what I say at least, is real mass adoption, is bringing the stories and highlighting them to people to show, here's a person who either did or didn't have a technical background, or at least had the money to be able to start the company or whatever, or even if they didn't go that route, they still found a way to be involved in this growing industry right now, in the early enough stages of it, or in the more recent, like last year, right? We're 10 years old at this point. And the idea being is that mass adoption isn't about what I argue. How do I say this? What I feel is being pushed out into the public right now is a very different narrative of mass adoption in comparison to what mass adoption was in 2013, 2014, right?
Were you in the space that early, Trekk?
Huh?
Were you in the space that early, 2013, 2014?
I was in the space that early, but I was a hodler. I was a naive techie kid who found out, like, oh, wow, like, wait, Babylon 5 money? Like Star Trek money?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And what was the message? So you're saying it was different now than it was then. And what was the message then? And what would you say it is now?
The message then was really about peer-to-peer. The message then was really about like community. The message then was about economic freedom, or at least economic sovereignty. The message then was a lot more culturally based to the core principles and the cypherpunk mindset compared to what you see being pushed out now.
Absolutely.
And, like, I would really like somebody to tell me different based on how I'm looking at what comes out in the social media space, based on how I see the companies that are getting elevated.
Yeah, you're totally right. And it is not, I mean, those ideas are still there, but often they're just held within the Bitcoin maximalist, which a lot of people call toxic, people.
Right.
And so, yeah, and then I mean, hopefully that label isn't, doesn't go along with those principles, right? Hopefully the toxic label is just for some negative comments that come out, and not actually all those set of principles which Bitcoin was founded on, and blockchain and everything else.
What I would say on that one is what I've found, or at least what I've noticed to happen. And if you talk to people who've been in, let's say, before 2017, right? There is a noticeable difference in the mindset. Because 2017 is when, like, you could just throw dirt at the wall on any ICO and it worked out. Mind you,
you'd get money at least.
People, right. But X amount of people still got left holding the bag, meaning that it was a pump and dump, and whoever the founder was, like, skirted off, right?
Absolutely.
But nonetheless, there was still that other part of the side of the story of where everyone's making money. Who's Lambo? And oh, we mooning. No, we're going Saturn. Like,
right.
All of that hype is going on. All of that, like, good times, everybody is going on.
Yeah, on the surface, but underneath there's a lot of, like, people are winning and, cheating the system, and then people are really losing big as well.
Right. And in the moment, that story wasn't being pushed out the same way as it was for who was making it, right? Yeah,
we still don't talk enough probably about that. I got in 2017, and really I couldn't fathom how ridiculous it was that I could watch my portfolio going up $1,000 in half an hour. it was so insane that I sort of caught this bug and thought, should I sell my house to like put into crypto? Like I really actually contemplated that seriously. I looked into some ICOs and had all the paperwork. I was so close to sending off the paperwork to put money in an ICO. And I lost money. And ultimately, I lost like a whole bunch of money. I ended up like, just breaking even. And then I couldn't stand the idea of not holding any crypto. So I put a little bit of money back in, and then the whole thing tanked. And I was at a loss for a year and a half until I've just about kind of broken even like recently. But it was really, that was my learning, right? Was these ups and downs, the crazy highs. It felt like gambling.
So that definitely like, it's funny. I've been in long enough that I've been around for certain things, but because I wasn't involved in certain parts of the space, it really wasn't a thing for me, right? So for example, I was around during Mt. Gox, but I wasn't doing anything related to Mt. Gox.
Wow.
Right?
Amazing.
So it didn't matter to me, oh, wow, like, the price did what it did. All right, well, I mean, it wasn't like I was even the traditional job that I was dealing with at the time. So whatever.
But you did you own Bitcoin at that time, but just not through the Mt. Gox exchange?
Exactly.
Right, because you were in this whole peer-to-peer philosophy.
I was in the hodling camp a lot more then.
Right.
So it isn't until like later on I get into like, all right, well, I'm going to start spending it because now I have options to be able to spend. So that's what I'm going to go do. I lost X amount because of like the whole crypto winter thing. I lost based on like, oh, wow, I forgot how to get to that wallet. I spent on things that I just didn't need to spend on, as well as I was a forced hand where I was cashing out in order to pay bills. Like, absolutely. I was really
been in the same boat.
With it in the full sense, right? And it's funny how when I talk to people now, like I said, like when you talk to people who get in after a certain year, you'll notice that there's a difference in how they perceive the space and the crypto side of it in particular, because they only really hear about 2017 as the high point of money. And then, it was all crazy stuff, wild, wild west, everything before 2017. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, it was that, but it's also, what were you doing that made you have more, risk adversity as opposed to like, if you were just hodling and you didn't do the craziness of, let me throw my hand in on everything. Or at least if you did X amount of research, right? Like your due diligence, as we say, then yeah, you weren't as bad off as somebody who was just like, well, I made 1,000 off of this thing. I'm just going to take it and then spread it across all these things I've never heard of or never looked into.
Because it seems like it might go up.
Right. Like, I mean, I was talking to my CPA the other day. And I was saying to her, I was looking at one of the accounts, and yes, I deal with paying these taxes. Why? Because I'm in the American jurisdiction. It's that simple, y'all.
And
it is
who wants to go to jail, actually?
Exactly. And then if you look at what they're doing now in regards to companies and individuals, they're going retroactive on the time when there was no legal guidance on what you could, quote, or couldn't do. Look, like the 25-year-old who just got life because he took the plea deal as opposed to fight it out in court because they scared him with, listen, you either gonna get like 10 years or 20 years if we go to court with this.
Right.
So now he's going to jail for life.
Right.
But I'm sorry.
Yeah, but you were saying you were talking with your CPA. Was there a point you were going to?
So I was saying to my CPA, like, I don't move how I used to move in 2017 and before because of how everything has really switched up. Like we talk about the financial sector was the low hanging fruit And I think, in my opinion, on looking what's going on in the space, is that um, we didn't take into account what the blowback would be for when traditional gate guards and regulators got together to be like, all right, bam, now we're gonna bring the hammer down. And that's what we see happening right now. We're going through that pain point of, here's the blowback for when the financial sector says, you know what? All right, we understand enough to know there's money to be made. We need to make sure we have our hand in it, and you can't take it out. And that's what we see happening right now. And I say that on the end of looking at one of my accounts, there was X amount of token, coin, airdrop, whatever in there that I was like, I'll be honest with you, my CPA, I have no idea when they got there, and I don't know what they are.
Right.
I just haven't looked at my stuff since last year when I had to do taxes.
And was it something that has a value, or it has virtually no value? It's just like
virtually no value.
Right.
Like some of the stuff like doesn't even register on the value side of it. And it's just like, all right, well, I mean, it's there. I don't know.
It may be worth
zero.
something one day. Right now it's zero.
Right. And so, and that now that has totally changed my whole approach. Like, there's no, let me go out and like, try to get this thing or that thing. Not at all.
Right. You have no interest.
No interest on the end of the uncertainty for being in the American jurisdiction. It doesn't necessarily work in your favor unless you already have the bank to be able to deal with the potential repercussions.
Right.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah. It's a good way to look at it. So do you just hold, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but do you only hold Bitcoin right now, or what's your feeling on different cryptocurrencies?
I am not a Bitcoin maximalist. It was my first introduction. I generally am not a price talk person, and I am not I'm gonna make this reference, and if you've been in long enough, you get it. I'm not a Trevon James kind of person. I honestly blame him and the BitConnect people for that wave of what we saw with people showboating their portfolios.
Tell me the story, because I don't know this story, Trekk.
Okay, so just to push this out there for your listeners and the potential of whoever else comes across, I'm not mooning. I'm in the grind of it like y'all would not understand. What I have in my Blockfolio or whatever account thing you want to look at now, it's nothing. Like, I'm dealing with life on the base end of it, right? And where I'm going in regards to what's in it or what's not in it is that during the ride up on the whole BitConnect thing, yeah, Trayvon, there was the other guy, and then like in the beginning it was like really Trayvon going heavy. I forgot the other name of the other guy, and it was like 2 or 3 other people that was really pumping heavy in the American market when like everyone had a channel on YouTube that was somehow related to like the top 10 ICOs, the next big pick for who's going to be the next big pump, and all of that fun stuff. And I don't remember it being if it was him that first started it, but one of the things that really started picking up, even for people who are like on the up and up as far as like, I'm not just pumping out anything, was the whole, let me show you what my
portfolio is doing,
looks like, what my account looks like. Oh, here's what I got I got 10,000 of this, I got 5,000 of that. Oh, I'm about to catch another rack of. And I look back on it now and I'm like, I get it. There was that exuberance of, everything is great. Once again, like I said, during that 2017 period, coming off of 2016, and I want to say it kind of started in 2016, but in that 2017, when everyone was really in their exuberant period about how, we're Lamboing and mooning out, everyone's talking about this high stuff, and it's like, oh, let me showcase and show off and be, look at me.
Yeah, as though they are the one to take all the credit, when in the entire industry, like every altcoin, everything was going up, through the sky, basically.
Yes. And so, but the other part that people weren't really paying attention, like the other part that people who weren't like active in the space weren't paying attention to, And when I'm saying, I look at it as there's two types of people in this space. You have the people who live off the space and the people who live in the space, right?
It's a good way of looking at it.
The off the space people are more so like, I'm involved in a way, but I'm not leaving my traditional workforce world, and I'm not really dedicated to this, as opposed to the people who live in the space, like myself, like you, like a Ken Bosak, like a what's his name, Crypto News, where we're in the space. We were seeing certain things happen where, oh wow, like the ransomware started picking up. Oh wow, this person got their home broken into. Oh wow, this person got held up at gunpoint. Like, little stories started happening, and it was starting out over in Europe, I want to say first, like Eastern Europe, and then it started moving west. And I remember when I first heard the first thing, I was like, well, I mean, that makes logical sense. Like, if you don't know how to do the mining part of this, if you don't have the patience or the wherewithal to deal with the trading part of it, the simplest thing you can do is brute force somebody else who does. And that's what people did.
Right.
But those stories weren't getting the necessary traction, or I don't want to say necessary, but relevant enough traction to have people understand, like, hey, stop.
There are risks. Yeah.
Stop.
Anybody understood. Yeah. I don't think anybody understood at that time how serious the risks were and how big they were, in 2017, like in September, between September and December, basically, or January even of the next year. Want to do more with your Bitcoin? Try Ledden's Bitcoin savings account, which pays out 3.5% annual interest, compounded and paid monthly in Bitcoin. Want to diversify your holdings, start a business, or buy more Bitcoin? Access a dollar loan while maintaining ownership of your Bitcoin and potential upside. For more info, check out ledden.io. Want to take your business global and add new revenue streams for your business? Stark can help. Stark's payment system can guarantee you discounted transaction fees, as well as a suite of blockchain payment tools, including real-time transaction reporting. Find out more at starkpayments.com. Want to earn free Bitcoin when you shop online? It's easy with Lolly. Shop at one of Lolly's over 500 top retail brands, and you'll earn up to 30% back in Bitcoin rewards. It's like getting Bitcoin for free. Sign up at no cost at lolly.com.
How am I saying this? The violence was happening before 2017. Things weren't really started getting reported until we kind of got into 2017. I was in Kuwait. And
what were you doing in Kuwait?
So I'm in the American National Guard Army.
Oh, I remember you saying that. Yes, amazing.
Yeah. So I was deployed in what's the name of the place? Yeah, I think it's Arifjan. Sorry. Anyhow, I was deployed, stationed in Kuwait, and I was still keeping track on who I was listening to on the YouTube side, who I was talking to through like Telegram and Twitter and stuff, and you were still hearing these little here and there things, like there was the Russian dude who got kidnapped. There was like the stories you were hearing in England about how they were breaking into people's houses. Like, the things were happening, but those weren't being reasonably like talked about in the space, and lo and behold, even here, one of the things that we don't necessarily talk about in the States, the majority of crypto ATMs are in the US, right? But how often do you ever actually hear about how people are stealing the ATMs? Right.
How often do you think that happens? Do you think it's more often than we hear about?
I don't know if I could actually qualify that. What I do know is it's something that is definitely picked up, because when I look at the ATMs around where I am in the DMV, I see the difference in how they're installing them.
Right. Makes sense.
You know what I'm saying? It has to be enough that it's like, all right, well, we need to start figuring
extra
out
security.
Physical security.
Right. Got it.
Right.
Interesting. Okay, Trekk, Maybe we can move on to just some ideas of, I guess I wanted to ask you, like, why are you in the space in the first place? You talked about the principles behind Bitcoin. Is it that's sort of keeping you around, or what is it that is most important to you?
What is it that is most important to me? Whew. Man, that I'm gonna say that there's a multiple of whys. My biggest whys, though, my more like high priority whys, my kids. I want to show them something different. You don't have to follow the beaten path of traditional workforce. This doesn't mean my kids are going to follow my path as far as either being tech or as far as being independent workers. I mean, or like, independent.
Like freelancers and entrepreneurs.
Right, entrepreneurs, right? It doesn't mean that they're going to follow that track at all. I have definitely come to accept that.
Yeah, they might fall into something that's more traditional, but I don't know if those jobs are going to be around as much anymore, right? Doctor, teacher, maybe, lawyers, that kind of thing. But otherwise, I don't know. I think it's going to be very non-traditional.
Okay. Real quick, I don't know if there's something scratching on another mic or something. I know I'm not touching anything on my end, but it sounds like either paper shuffling or something on your side when you're talking.
Yeah, I think it's this. Listen. Is that it?
Okay, yeah.
It's my hair on this jacket. Isn't that nutty? It's terrible. Yeah, I probably shouldn't wear this jacket.
Okay. I was like, what? I was like, I don't see her doing anything. What's making that sound?
I know, it's loud. Sometimes if I've got it on and I've been shooting a lot for this documentary, and one of my kids does the audio and they're like, how come it's really loud on your mic? I'm like, I don't, and then we realize what it is. Anyway, my apologies.
Okay. No, I mean, just something to be aware of later on.
Absolutely.
You already are. But yeah, so my kids are definitely a part of the why. The other part of when I first heard of when I first heard of Bitcoin, I instantly thought Babylon 5.
Right.
And for the sci-fi geeks out there, you know what the show I'm talking about. I instantly thought, Star Wars, the Union credits. And it was like, wow, like this is going to be the thing to be the pioneer to get us to that point where money still matters. And for what I was paying attention to at that time in my life, it was like, it only makes sense because we're already using credit cards and stuff now, right? So money is essentially digital already.
Absolutely.
This is just the next evolution of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the part of like, this industry is developing within my lifetime, right? And like technically speaking, the internet developed to a certain degree within my lifetime, but this is a new level or a upgrade in the technology that will dynamically shift how technology will go forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a coder, I'm not the serial entrepreneur, but I think for my thing is let me do something that relates to helping people, at least, if not be aware, at least help them understand what is coming down the pike.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, which you're doing. And maybe I should get back to what I asked you, like the first question I asked you, which is you have these different days of the week. And how did you come up with that? And maybe you can explain what they are and why people might be interested in watching.
Okay, so thank you for that. That was a great segue. I started working on a event for Baltimore Innovation Week. It's called Baltimore Innovation Week in Baltimore, in Maryland. And prior to that particular thing, I have been trying to figure out, like, how do I make my stuff better, but I don't necessarily want to follow the general thing of what everyone else who does content creation does. And so for me, it was really more about organizing my content, but not going, okay, on the 29th, I'm going to say this exact thing. On the 30th, I'm going to say this. And then 2 weeks from now, I know that I'm going to push out this particular article. What got me was, can I at least find a way to organize out these particular days? And, initially I thought about the 7 day thing, because I was really trying to figure out how to deal with LinkedIn. That's what it really boiled down to. And one of the things that they do for Baltimore Innovation Week is they theme out the days, right? It's a 7 day event and each day has a different theme. So there's like the civic day theme, there's the access day theme, there's the dev day theme, there's a community day theme. And I took that idea and I said, you know what, let me theme the day as it relates to either a pre-recorded thing or a live stream that will relate to that particular thing. So I have the Monday Focus, which is really a motivational thing for myself. So it's me talking to myself, right?
It's great. I mean, it seems very personal, like it's lessons and advice that either you've received and taken to heart that you're trying to share with other people, or but very personal kind of learnings and understandings that you're just openly sort of sharing.
Yes. And that's been a growing process within itself to realize, because I try to bring it from, here's the entrepreneurship thing that I'm learning and understanding and going through the process with, and then here's the me learning what my story is and like really understanding what these experiences are and how I'm developing and quote building my brand voice, right?
Absolutely.
So the Monday push, then you have the Tuesday brand. Tuesday brand is literally about talking about marketing, branding things, but doing it from my perspective again. Wednesday is the Wednesday rant. Most things pretty much relate to crypto or blockchain that I go on about. And then Thursday is Thursday Blackness, which is about, Black-owned business, Black-owned tech, Blacks in tech. And then Friday is the Friday Focus, which is more about a reminder to people who are in the entrepreneurship space or within that self-improvement mentality of, hey, you did all your stuff that you did during the week. Don't lose track of things once you get into this weekend and thinking you can just shut everything off, especially when you're in, the business side of things. It's not just to turn your brain off and just throw up your hands and then you're free for the next 48 hours, right? And so that's been what I've been pushing on for like about the last month now. And it is definitely a noticeable difference in the traction it makes. Like one, organizing your content in general, right? But then when you actually, I guess to say, have
like consistently put it out there.
Oh, that is a whole nother part. This consistency is definitely a thing you have to work on. It's not an easy overnight thing. And, one of the things that I had to kind of learn the hard way, because like 3 months back, I was doing Steam It, which is a blockchain-based social media platform. And it was, all right, I'm going to do every day something. And it's a process. Like it really, I had to scratch my head a lot of times and trying to figure out what to even talk about, what to even say. Like, did it even make sense to say anything at all? And I mean, I did it for like I think my longest run was like maybe 20 days of like every day posting something.
Yeah, it's not easy if you're trying to bring good content and you're not just saying, something nonsensical, right? If you're actually trying to give something that is going to help somebody learn something or think maybe a little differently, then, is there a way that you can kind of bank ideas that you have, or what's your process at this stage?
Honestly, what I learned during that process was, one, initially, yes, it is daunting. It definitely comes to a level of being daunting and repetitive. But then if you're really into what you're into and the whole passion thing comes in, right? And your why, what you will then realize is you'll think about it enough And if you're also taking in and seeing what other people are doing, and I'm not saying go out and copy and, cut and paste, drag and drop what other people are doing. But what I'm saying is you start to realize how to look at things through the lens that's like your way of telling your story, right? And
Absolutely.
then you're able to pick out like what the relevant thing is, or what the thing is that you can bring that isn't, already being espoused in the echo chamber of whatever your industry or space is.
Yeah, for sure. Is there some example that you can give us of something that was like a real learning for you that either really hit home for you that you wanted to share, or that seemed to hit home with a lot of other of your viewers?
My the most recent thing to hit home for me within the podcasting part of the space. So one of the guys that I know out of Philly, his name was Felty256. He was a coder, PC gamer guy. He came up with his own platform that he was a startup, right? Met him through one of the, Bitfill or Philly's Bitcoin thing. Over time, seen him enough times at the different events and stuff, and then we finally started connecting on crypto Twitter and stuff. And I'm not saying we've known each other for years, but he became a stable part of my ecosystem within the SOMI space, right? And I would ask him questions on stuff when I, it was like, hey, well, what do you think about this? Or he was always like the first person to like comment on something I posted or like a video or whatever.
It's a big deal.
Right?
You feel closer to those people.
Right. And then I know him in real life because when I
Right.
go up to Philly, like, hey, all right, so this was going on. Yeah. Oh, are you gonna be at that convention? All right. Yeah, I'll see you there.
Awesome.
He passed right after I was coming back from Toronto at the Futurist conference. I was on the way to, where was I? I was coming back from Detroit after the Futurist conference, going to New York. And until that moment happened, it really never clicked to me that you could interview somebody and then they might not be here in a week or a day or a year, and you could be the last recorded conversation of them.
Right. Yeah, it's deep.
It never clicked to me.
So what was your big sort of, I guess, takeaway from that? Like,
my takeaway was to be more appreciative of people taking their time to talk to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
For how I run my stuff, I have two segments. It's the Everyday People segment, and then there's the Conversations With segment. The Everyday People segment has framing questions, but it's geared towards people who are not actually like actively involved in the space as far as being a personality or somebody who actually works for a company or something or has a company. And I use the same set of questions, and people are always amazed that when we start talking, they don't think we'll talk as long as we do.
I could see that with you. You're a good conversationalist.
and the same thing happens on the Conversations With side, which there are no framing questions. And my longest conversation with somebody is like 2 hours and like 50 minutes.
Whoa.
Right?
Amazing.
And so I have definitely, since that realization of like, this could be the last time somebody talks, and you have that recording of it, like I want to have people feel comfortable enough to share their experiences. Like they're not just the company, they're not just another tech person, or they're not just another doctor's assistant. Like, no, this is a person who has had a life and they've experienced these things, and it's gotten them to have these thoughts about this
like once you we're all here for the technology, and once you can get past the technology in the conversation and you get to that person's ideas and who they are, the conversation becomes really interesting because we are all unique. We all come from different places. We all have sort of different fears and hopes and, that kind of thing. So that's where the conversation, I think, starts to get really interesting. So it's great that you're, carrying on these really long form conversations that we don't have enough nowadays. I mean, sounds like you're doing a lot more of them, even just, on the side.
Yes. As when I tell people, when I make that introduction of like, hey, let's have a conversation on the podcast, and I say, here's what it is. This is about having a contextual, organic conversation that relates to you. And some people get it, some people don't. And then that's why I recommend, hey, listen to the podcast and you'll see what I'm talking about. And when you do, then it's just like, oh, wow, like, yeah, he was serious. Like, you really just like talk with people on, what did you think of this? How did you feel about that? And I will say, even within the everyday people segment that has the framing questions, I'm still amazed at like just the things that I still talk about with people. And I
like what kinds of things?
Huh?
Like what kinds of things? Can you give me an example?
Like on the end of like learning how some people came into the crypto space but didn't know of Bitcoin until like months after.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah. Surprising to hear that story in like 2019 or 2018 when I first heard it. I was just like, wait, what? How does that who
work?
got you in? Like Tron, or it's like hard to imagine who got them in if it wasn't Bitcoin, right? Oh, Dash or Litecoin, or it's okay. So these companies are doing a great marketing job, clearly. Then
there's that part of it too, or just to hear, even like I said, the conversations at times can get into like personal stuff to a degree, like talking with one person who was learning how to code, and then hear their story of how they were driving from their state to another state 10 hours a week to go to a meetup.
Wow.
I was just like, wow, okay.
That's hardcore.
Dedication,
yeah, absolutely.
And then talking with people about things that are totally unrelated, like how you found out you have a gluten allergy and how it made you change you and your family's whole thing of eating, where you now cook from scratch and you have a special recipe for mayo. Like,
okay. Who knew?
I even have like 2 like crypto romance stories, like
That's
one
cool.
My first one, oh God, I can't remember how to say this lady's name right now, but she was in India. She met her now husband online. They were talking about blockchain. She came from like the finance side, and they end up talking, eventually they meet each other. She moves to England. They start getting more closer together, and then boom, like, now they're married and they're writing a book that comes out later this year.
Awesome. Cool. That's nice.
Right.
That's great. And how long have you been doing the podcast for, or the videos?
Yeah. I started it last year. And I kind of had X amount of adjustments. When I initially started the idea of it, it was very different than where I'm at right now with it. It's definitely going through some morphing. Excuse me. What am I at right now? I think like a year and a couple of months. I have 30 something published out, but I got like another 30 something to push out.
Amazing.
And I'm still recording, which I realized I had to kind of slow down on that part to get to the stuff that's still backlogged. And yeah, so a year and change of this right now, and it's just interesting to see where I started to where I am now with it.
Yeah, it's awesome. I know you recently interviewed Isaiah Jackson, Bitcoin Zay from Bitcoin in Black America.
Yeah.
What do you think of his book and what he's all about?
All right. So I think Zay comes from the ground up part of the space. In the general, we are all looking to figure out how can we elevate above our economic stance that we're in, right? And I think his book conveys very relevant and realistic methods to be able to elevate yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And in this country we call the US, arguably, people of color, Black people, are in the worst situation in comparison to other groups of folks. So I think his book is relevant. And I think what he talks about in the book is practical.
Great. It's a great way to put it. I interviewed him recently and have read the book, and I think the book is phenomenal. I'd recommend it to anybody from any cultural background, race, whatever. But it was interesting just to hear the takeaway on how do you make this community stronger, like the Black community stronger, by not only actually huddling Bitcoin, but also spending it. I thought, that was an interesting sort of take because, often we're so worried about actually using it, but he's saying, the more you spend it. And in fact, he told me it took him a while, but he only interacts in Bitcoin as much as he humanly possibly can. So it took him a while, maybe a year or so, but he kind of went around to everybody in his community and asked if they would accept Bitcoin, including like his landlord. So that now he's basically helped them adopt Bitcoin just by that process. And what if every one of us did that within our own communities as a way in? If we're paying someone in Bitcoin, what a great way for them to get in, earning Bitcoin, just from the ground up kind of thing.
And like I said, like the ground up thing, I argue a lot about how in order to get this to go or grow right towards the mass adoption, this thing where we talk about like ETFs and like financial instruments that are blockchain based, that's not mass adoption. That's rich people with money signaling to other rich people how they can get more money.
That's true.
They're not going to spend it in order to be able to like actually deal with the cost of daily living.
Absolutely.
So that's to me why I really do like the book. That's why I look to have him on. I'll actually see him next week down in DC, and it's one of those things of like, he gets it, and he gets it on the end of he's in the same boat as me, as like we're here at the ground level, and we see that in order for this mass adoption thing to work in a way that really works for the average person, the person at the base level, you have to start this way. I was just talking earlier to somebody about how I look at it and go, mass adoption is a seesaw, right? On one side, you have the bottom up introduction, and on the other side, you have the top down. And the top down is like the government, traditional tech companies, traditional financial institutions, like those tiers, right? And so what you then have happen is you have the people, but you have you have the jurisdiction and the culture, and this seesaw goes back and forth. So you can have the government say, hey, this is what we want to implement. But if the people have enough force and community together to be like, nah, we just not going to do it, it doesn't matter what the government wants. If that's not in the culture or in the cultural norms of the people. Case in point, when you look at how the exchanges as a business were adopted in South Korea or Japan, top down, governments came in quick. Regulation. The people are more of a community-based thing. No one really sticks out. There's no individualism thing. We need order, we need regulation, government's doing it, boom, all right, no problem. The industry for them is thriving in that way because it was culturally appropriate for that group, that region, that area. But now look at what's going on in Hong Kong, right? Hong Kong's people at the younger age group are kind of not following the general stereotype of Asian people of always falling in line. The government wants to do this thing. The people are saying, no, we don't want to do that. Bring it here to the US, the government, SEC, IRS, CFTF, whoever you want to talk about, they're coming down this way. And to a degree, we have the people saying, no, we don't necessarily want to totally headbutt and fight about regulation stuff.
Yeah, it's happening, sort of that fighting or the backlash from the people is happening less so in the United States, I think, because most Americans feel like, we have it pretty good, you know? Whereas if you're from Venezuela and you're in this dictatorship where your money is now virtually worthless, you want to convert your money into Bitcoin as quickly as possible or into American dollars, you know, just as a safe haven. So Bitcoin is much more important for, you know, a culture or a community where the financial system hasn't done them wrong. But I guess you could argue, I think Isaiah Jackson even argues, like, there isn't generational wealth in the Black community that way there is in the white community in the United States, let's say. And he even explains why that has been because of the redlining by the banks and not allowing, Black community members to be part of certain communities even. So if you don't have that generational wealth, you're not able to, as you say, do things like futures contracts, or, you know, we have been in a situation where the rich have gotten richer. And so Bitcoin is a way out of that shift. And as you're saying, the sort of seesaw, now we can start to look at, you know, everybody can get in, and it's still super early days. So why not try and encourage everybody to start with, you know, just accumulating a little bit of Bitcoin and going from there?
So, how am I going to say this? For how I see what's going on right now, like I said, in the popular narrative, the mass adoption thing that's being pushed out is, oh yeah, you know, such and such is about to get their ETF going. Binance is doing blah, blah, blah. In the background, you have a bigger push on the KYC movement under the AML thing, which is under the Patriot Act, right? I've talked, I think, to enough people at this point, and I'm not saying I've talked to like the who's who of people, but I've talked to enough people to be like, wait, if we all get that KYC doesn't really stop people from doing money laundering, because people aren't money laundering in this thing we call crypto or Bitcoin or whichever specific thing you want to focus on, because we just can't handle the volume of fiat, right? Why is it being pushed over this way?
It's interesting.
Right? And one of the things I kind of get to is, this isn't about, quote, protecting us from scammers or watching for the bad actors. This is more so about getting in your financial business, right? And at the end of the day,
or taxing citizens, right? If you've done KYC, won't you be able to follow then that, you know, transaction history?
Yes, but
from someone, so you'll know how much crypto they have and how much they've, you know, gained and things like that.
Here's my argument on that one. Now, I just thought of this. If you're going to really bunker down on me having to deal with taxes, and because I'm using this whole crypto thing, how about you implement, as I'm saying this as a government thing, you implement actually accountable, open, traceable blockchain system where we can see where all of the money went for all of the different things. At the end
Brilliant.
of the day,
in the government, you mean, have the government be fully transparent about every financial interaction.
Right.
Brilliant.
But if you notice how it's being pushed, it's not about the government being transparent. It's not about a company being 100% transparent. It's about the people outside of those institutions and systems being traceable and trackable for that central authority. It's not a two-way street. That's not what's being argued here.
Amazing. That's such a great point. I've never even considered that before, but that would be revolutionary. That would be using the technology to, like, the people's advantage, right? To be able to see, okay, you want to know everyone else's history? Why don't you open up the books and show us what you're doing with every penny? Really interesting. That's great. What do you think, Trekk, has been the best thing about putting yourself out there as a content creator at this point?
Oh man. Putting myself out there as a content creator.
You're very personal. You get into like your sort of own personal take, your own personal learnings. Um, and I think that's beneficial for a lot of people. But is
I'm,
it rewarding?
I'm gonna say that has been a process to come to. And I say that in the last couple of days, more about a week or so, I've been really looking into this thing about like how do you tell your story. So like what's the guy's name? Carmine Gallo. I'm listening to his book and other things that I've been paying attention to. And one of the things that I'm I guess understanding more, and some of it I didn't even do this intentionally, honestly. It was let me try this thing, let me try that thing, let me make sure to record, a daily little snippet of like, all right, this thing happened today and I feel like this today, and oh, here's something I thought of, or I should try to do this in like 2 weeks. I have videos that go back to 2017, right? Of when I first started saying, I'm going to do this thing as a business. I'm going to be a consultant. I'm going to be a smart contract auditor. And to look back and think about and then go through my notes and putting myself out as a content creator, I just find it interesting to watch the transition and my growth.
And what's been one of your biggest learnings from, let's say, 2017 till now?
What has been at the moment? I mean, oh, man, I would say being honest with yourself, which then I guess works to get you honest out as far as how your content, like at a certain point, right? People will like, if you have a good PR person, they can give you all the pointers on everything on how to, smile this way, look that way, to make sure you turn your head, wear these colors. Like they can give you all of those props and talking points to present you out a certain way. And for me, my biggest learning thing at this point has been, I know I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I know I'm not going to get the accolades that are going to start popping up. I don't know if you've really noted it or paid attention about how X amount of the media platforms within the space, whether they be news magazines or more news sites, or even like other video related platforms, there's going to start to be a thing about whose award matters, much like how the VMA matters, much like how the Grammys matter, and things along that line. Like that's going to start to be a thing in this space. And in my head, it was literally a couple months ago, I realized that I'm not going to be that guy who intentionally goes out to make content that works towards garnering an award.
Yeah, really interesting. So if you're not doing it for the accolades or for the recognition, let's say, then why are you doing it?
Because I'm okay with being the person behind the scenes who, when you need to do something effectively or you need that connection in, like my bigger long run goal is to get to where it's, hey, oh, you want to get into the blockchain thing or the business thing, or you want to figure out how to do your branding or your brand voice, you should talk to Trekk.
Mm-hmm. What do you think you're really good at? What are your biggest strengths?
Right now, at this stage of things, it's doing the legwork. Like I'll have the conversations. I'll go from point A to point D down to Z. I'll doing the grunt work right now, I would say, is the biggest strength, and being able to not get caught up in, oh man, like that person has blah 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 followers number wise, the metrics, right? And staying humble. I think doing the grunt work and staying humble is like the biggest thing for me right now because of where I'm at. because I see other people who came in after me or around the same time as me, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. You know, congrats to you. I'm not mad. Like, you put your work in too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from my perspective, I would put the humility or you being humble first. I think something that you just do really well naturally is you are humble, but also you are a people person. People matter to you, so you can connect with people easily. So I met you just briefly at, this event, and my partner met you as well, I think at the run, maybe when we were doing Crypto Euclid. So Gabriel Tate, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. So he met you as well and was like, Trekk, oh, Trekk. And somehow we both got talking about you and how much what kind of an impact you had on us from a very short conversation. And we were both like, oh, that guy is like, so separately, we just, at the same time, we're like, whoa, that guy, something about you just felt like you're a real human. And we don't always see that, especially with like content creators, right? Who are kind of putting themselves out there and they're like over the top or trying to be like, larger than life or, that kind of thing. But you are naturally just really real and seem to be really comfortable with who you are. And that helps people feel really comfortable.
Thank you. I did not know you were connected with Gabriel. I was talking to somebody. I was like, yeah, I want to talk to the guy who was at the run with. I was talking to Euclid.
Okay, yeah, Euclid. They hit it off really, really a lot too.
Yeah,
it's good. Good to connect with good people.
Yes. Him and his wife are a trip.
I love them. I think they're the greatest, right? They're such an amazing couple.
But no, thank you very much. And like I said, with the story, really trying to figure out this storytelling thing. I've been going through this thing in my head and trying to figure out, and I'm working on it slowly but surely, is, how do I tell my story in a relevant way and do it with confidence without being cocky. And the other day I did a video about confidence because something I was talking with my daughter about, and because she was telling me something, I was like, wait, hold on, you're second guessing yourself too much in how you're explaining this to me. Like,
and how old is she, your daughter?
Sorry?
How old is she, your daughter?
Oh, 14. She's actually, this is her first full day of high school.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So, but what it got me to was, for that particular conversation, is like, there's a thing of where you have to speak for your work, right? And one of the things that I'm learning within this whole experience of the podcast and stuff is I'm cool with talking with people. Ironically enough, though, I label myself as an introvert with extroverted tendencies, right? So when I got to get out and when I got to do this, like, hey, like, let's just talk, let's rap, or you'll see me here or you'll see me there, whether I'm doing like a live stream while driving or I'm at a park or I'm on some corner in Philly or New York, whatever. But then I have my like, all right, I'm going to be in the house for a week and not go anywhere.
Yeah, I know exactly how you feel. And maybe that's why I felt comfortable when I first met you, because I feel like I'm really introverted too, but I can have, one-on-one conversations, like a deeper conversation or more meaningful, rather than, trying to be the life of the party and having like many conversations with a whole bunch of different people that are not maybe as meaningful. And
okay, I don't know if you've experienced this particular thing. And I mean, I would imagine that it happens generally across all of the different industries, right? Industry events. But it's funny, and I've talked with a couple of people about this. Samson brought this up the other day about like the whole F off thing of what we kind of say to people, but in a nice, politically correct way. And in the crypto space, we have that tendency of where we talk about community and everyone come in and be welcome, but you get into those moments of where, and I know for like events in particular, you get into like, let me assess who you are in this conversation and figure out how do you either relate to me, as far as what can this relationship build to, right? And then if you are assessing, well, no, this can't go anywhere, then it's like, well, hey, oh yeah, sure, let's keep in contact. Oh yeah, let me get your card, and oh yeah, yeah, follow me on such and such, and oh, are you gonna be at? And then you kind of just, slide off, which was surprising to me when you actually followed up on stuff. Where I was like, oh wow, all right, cool. My approach now when I go to the events and things and start connecting with people is like, all right, I'm just gonna drop out the seed and we see where it goes.
Yeah, it's a good way to do it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it feels freer to go about things that way, right? Like, because as you're saying, even with putting out content, right? You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. So why try and sort of mold yourself to be something for someone else? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's great. What do you think, Trekk, has been like the most challenging time in your career, let's say, and how were you able to overcome it?
In regards to this being in this crypto blockchain thing, the most challenging thing has been not following the trend. And when I say not following the trend, I mean it in two things. One is I do the consulting side, right? I have a company that I'm consulting with them. They're my one client. And
sorry,
I don't bring up the consulting side of stuff much. I really don't. I don't even advertise it like that. And then the other side is the podcast side, right? And the following the trend in both of these particular endeavors relates to, do you do the in thing of talking about money, price speculation? Where should you invest? Do you start trying to pull in that crowd of folks where it's like, hey, come on in, I can tell you what you should do with your money and where you should put it in. And I'm not getting into the whole thing about like being a financial advisor. I'm not going down that road in particular, but I'm talking about making that subject brand association,
right,
where you're naming different products and companies that are doing stuff and like, yeah, they're going to be promising because of da 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 da. Or you start doing things where you talk about like, today Bitcoin went up to this price point and then, Ethereum lost out on, and that's a trendy thing to do right now.
It is,
right?
Yeah.
I'm not a price talk person. It's not my cup of tea. And I also have been in long enough in general within the space to know what happens when you start making that be your thing as far as a part of your content. When the sentiment goes low because of the price stuff, so the pricing blowback into the general community sentiment, you start to lose audience. And then you're like, oh man, what do I need to do to like get people back on? I don't want to go through that.
No. Yeah, it seems backwards. It seems like if people who are doing that maybe are selling out more, and maybe just not true with themselves, because how long can you be looking at the prices and be right all the time? But yeah. Anyway, I'm totally with you on that. What do you think your greatest learning has been this year?
What is my greatest learning this year? I don't know, because the year hasn't finished out. Honestly. I mean, one thing so far to this point is to realize I can make it outside of the traditional workforce. And once that like really clicked in, like mentally clicked in, it's like, all right, well, I could do this. I can do this. And you get like your whole Superman stance, right?
That's awesome. And why is that? Like, why does it feel that way for you?
Because generally speaking, we're taught you have to have a particular type of work that fits within traditional workforce concepts and definitions and pay rate, right? As opposed to what I do within this crypto thing, within the gig economy stuff, where it's like, hey, all right, I can grind out for 6 days doing what I'm doing And then the next 4 days, I'm just going to straight focus on crypto blockchain stuff. Let me go to these meetings that I need to go to. Let me make these phone calls. Let me start doing these promo ideas that I have. And I can deal with stuff like from my daughter or my son. It's like, hey, we need money for this, that. And okay, grind, got it. Let's go. And I execute, and then I come back and say, here.
It's awesome.
It
sounds freer.
To a degree, yes. And it takes some getting used to, and then you got to figure out your systems and how you implement certain things. But once you get it, let me give a little background on why it is a favorite to me, right? My daughter is starting high school, or has started high school this year. We get the calendar, and I say to her, hey, go through the calendar, mark out the events that you are interested in and you want me at. Now, on top of parent-teacher meetings, on top of other ceremony things, on top of whatever club she's going to be in, I'm like, look at the stuff now, mark it out. I'm going to add it into my calendar, and everything else that happens in this whole my life thing, in this whole business thing, in this whole podcasting thing will be centered around whether you have an event that day.
It's cool.
That's the next 4 years.
Yeah, that's cool. You're making her a priority and your relationship with her.
Right, because me and Hamas was talking about the whole balance thing. And you can't do that with a traditional job, especially when you're states away. Honestly, I can go back into defense contracting and make way more money than I'm dealing with right now.
Right.
But I'll either be overseas, how many miles away,
right,
or I could be here in the States, but I can't still move the way I need to make those certain events.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, it's a huge reason. Love it. Oh, it's awesome. Trekk, is there anything that you wanted to get to that we haven't got to? Otherwise, I'll ask you 5 fun questions.
What I would get to. Okay. For everyone that is kind of promoting this thing about how we need to educate people about crypto or about blockchain, but then says, don't get too far in the weeds. When you don't make that distinction between what an open or a private blockchain is, that's how you get people getting rope-a-doped into things like AWS and Microsoft doing GitHub. You can unpack that how you want to unpack it. You can challenge me on it how you want to challenge me. I'm free and open for DMs.
Okay, sounds good. We'll leave it there. Thanks, Trekk. So 5 fun questions. Number 1, if you could swap jobs with anyone for a day, whose job would you want to try out?
Ooh, yo, what's interesting? I thought about this, not necessarily this question, but I got a couple of, my brother-in-law, he's a firefighter and stuff, and I got a couple of other friends who are firefighters. And I was always kind of curious, yo, is that a job I would do? You literally run to the fire.
To the fire, not away from it.
Right. And then I think about the military thing, and I'm just yeah, but I'm not really a panic under pressure kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I could do that for a day.
Cool. Okay, awesome. Love it. That's a cool job. Number 2, and also very heroic, I would say, as well as military. Number 2, what's the highest Bitcoin price or lowest you can imagine Bitcoin? I know you're not a price guy, but what's the highest or lowest you could imagine it hitting this year? This is not investment advice.
I'll be honest, I'm horrible at paying attention to the price. So I honestly don't even know what it is today, and I don't know what it's been for this whole week. So it's I could say oh yeah, maybe you'll make it at a max of 11K, and then mind you, it's above 12 or something right now. Right. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. So you're not really, doesn't matter to you so much at this stage.
I'm a tech over price kind of person.
Yeah. Got it. Number 3, what's the most challenging time in your career and how were you able to overcome it? I kind of asked you that question. Is there anything else you wanted to share or?
No, I think I'm gonna stick with that one.
Yeah. Number 4, if you could sum up your life so far into one moment, an event, or a place and time in your life, what would it be? I was just thinking,
Ooh.
is there something that was like a really powerful moment for you that changed everything? Or is there something that sort of defines maybe who you were as a kid or who you are now?
um, One moment that I would say has kind of worked out to bring me to here, and I don't actually know what the exact moment was, but I know it was that mental click of I'm going to high school and I got to get out of this shell that I'm in. Like, um, I gotta learn how to talk to people.
You felt like it was really difficult for you to talk to people before.
I mean, I wasn't like the super shy kid, but I wasn't the kid who was going out of his way to talk to people. As a kid, like I moved a lot, a lot. And so it was one of those like I'm not like as a kid, I never lived any place like relatively longer than 3 years or so, right? So there's no need for me to make connections and make establishments and roots in the area if I'm not going to be here in like another year maybe. So once high school started and then realizing, okay, you have a little bit more control of how you connect and interact with people. It was, I'm going to work to get out of my shell. I'm going to talk and connect with people.
Well, I think you did. You figured it out, because I would never have guessed that you would have had any trouble connecting with anyone when I had met you. So, yeah. Do you follow any special diet? Bitcoin community is very like meat only, carnivore, keto, vegan, vegetarian, anything. Is there anything specific you do?
I try to be healthy and I suck at it. Like,
Yeah, me too. I'm like this. I'm like crazy healthy, really unhealthy. Like it's
so
no
for
holds barred.
example,
Yeah.
and now I feel extra bad. It's like, yo, you should go run today, man. Stop being a fat. What is it? I ran yesterday in the morning, I think it was, or the day before. And then like last night, I was just walking by the store and I was like, I'm gonna go buy this ice cream. Oh, it's a deal going on today too? Oh, we getting this Neapolitan right here and this Rocky Road. Like chocolate and ice cream as a combo. Oh man, is that the Achilles heel right there?
Same.
So,
It's probably my favorite. That's awesome.
I mean, I try to not do red meat as a regular thing, but I'm not gonna lie, man. Like steaks taste good. Not rare, like bloody steaks and all that, but steaks taste good. And if you do like handmade burgers, oh man, those are good too.
Okay.
And then I'll have my moments of like, all right, we're not going to eat meat for like a couple of days, or like I do quinoa for like, back-to-back days and stay away from meat and all of that fun stuff. Ironically, so far it's worked to where health-wise I'm okay. And then of course it's the military thing too, so I got to keep that physical standard thing going. If I wasn't still in and the things that it was connected to, I mean, honestly, I don't think I would end up just like splurging out. And that's only because I'm a lot more aware now of how processed food works on a body, of how the fooding industry is for what they do with things. And so, I mean, I don't do heavy on red meat. I run more often than not. And I try to drink a lot more water.
Yeah, it sounds healthy, like by most people's standards, right?
Right.
I feel like as we get older and older, for myself, I feel like you can either go one way or another. Either you kind of throw your hands up and say, oh, screw it, and just, not care anymore. So, not exercise so much and just eat whatever garbage. Because it's more difficult. Or do you go the other way and just say, no, it's still important to me. This isn't the end of my life. I want to keep learning and growing and becoming better, not accepting that my body isn't as strong as it once was, or I can't get out of bed as quickly in the morning, or, whatever it is. So my dad's 74 and he's like the fittest 70-ish year old that I've ever met in my life. If he doesn't work out twice a day, he's slacking off.
My uncle's like that.
Oh my God, he's got this body, right? He's a professional, he's a competitive dragon boat paddler that he does like amateur. He still plays hockey at 70-ish. Wow. Yeah, he's just hardcore, working out all the time. So maybe I have that to live up to. It's a legacy.
You know what? My uncle is like that. I think he's in his 60s now. And it's one of those things of like, I seen what happened when my grandmother had a stroke. I see what my mother's going through. I see kind of what my pops is dealing with. I see other family members going through their stuff. And I'm gonna bring it back to the military thing on the end of, I see what it's like when people get out and then they just totally let the standards go to the wayside. And then it's just like, you see them struggling to walk, or you see them struggling to breathe. And it's like, I don't want to be that dude.
No, thanks. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for following up and actually like saying, hey, come on. I appreciate.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Speaking of Crypto with Shannon. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe. And for more great content and to stay up to date, visit speakingofcrypto.com and Facebook and Twitter at Speaking Crypto. We'll catch you next time.